Morning, Camino. It's Pastor Bruce. I've been doing a little reading this week in Hebrews, chapters 10, chapters 11. And in chapter 11, you're probably familiar. Famous chapter, talking about the heroes of the faith, if that's maybe the best way to describe it. And it goes through a long list of people who were called people of faith. And it gives you the list, right? It starts out, this is Abel and Enoch and Noah and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Sarah and Joseph, and then it picks up with Moses, and then it goes into the nation of Israel and talking about how they conquered Jericho, and then talked about, and then he just says, there's a whole bunch of other stories. I don't have time to tell you about Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah and David and Samuel and the prophets, and he just goes through this huge list and talks about it being an example of faith and what it means to live by faith. And it kind of takes an interesting twist to highlight what it means to walk by faith, because it's not always easy. God is faithful, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you get what you want, that things work out the way you think they should. And Hebrews chapter 11, verse 13 highlights that. Here's what he says. After listing all those guys, all the prophets and the women as well, and he just says, all these died in faith without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. It was the writer's way of saying they were all people of faith, and they waited. It's the nature of being people of faith. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you see it from afar. Sometimes you know it's coming, but it's not going to come in your lifetime, maybe. But it doesn't change who God is. It doesn't change his faithfulness. It doesn't change what God's going to do and what God's going to do in your life. Be people of faith. That's the history. That's the history of people who walk by faith and not by sight. It's a good walk. It's a good journey. See you soon, church.